Hi, I'm Riley Moynes, author of The 4 Phases of Retirement and its sequel, The 10 Lessons. We're speaking with people who are squeezing all the juice out of their retirement. People with widely divergent backgrounds, experience, and expertise. People with stories that can inspire and encourage you too to squeeze all the juice out of your retirement. Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. Here we go. Our guest today is Peter H. Dennis, who enjoyed a lengthy career in human resources. Since he's been retired for about the last 10 years, he's been involved in a variety of other activities, including volunteering with a charity called Out of the Cold, which provides food and clothing for those in need during the winter months. He serves as a member of the board with an organization called Connecting the Community, which involves him in other charities and community events. And he's the author of 4 books on the topics, one of which is handwriting analysis, metaphysics, spirituality, and his latest, which is called Hypnosis, Channeling, and Raising Consciousness. As well, he's a podcaster. But it's probably fair to say that his primary focus today is on hypnotism and, increasingly, channeling. We'll come back to these topics shortly, but first, welcome, Peter. Thanks for joining me today.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Riley. Pleasure to be here.
Good. Well, listen, let's start off with telling us some of your background. When you were slugging it out and working for a paycheck, tell us about that aspect of your life.
Well, initially I qualified as a school teacher, but found out pretty early I didn't really want to work for a school board. So I went back to school and got an MBA, and a really good HR job came along, and I became a human resources professional and had a career spanning 35, 40 years. Very satisfying career, enjoyed it. Worked with some major corporations and KPMG, Pillsbury. Yeah, had a very satisfying career.
And you've been retired from that line of work now for almost 10 years, or perhaps slightly a little bit more than 10 years. And your interests have gone in quite a different direction. Tell me a little bit about the background to how you became involved in these topics of hypnotism and spirituality.
Well, I guess at an early age, I recognized that I just had a real interest in metaphysical things. At a young age, I had read things like Edgar Cayce books and Lobsang Rampa, and always fascinated with these kind of things. But through my working life, as an HR person, I did a lot of training. And one of the programs I used to get a real kick out of was goal setting and goal achieving. Mm-hmm. And it dawned on me that if somehow we could mobilize the unconscious portion of the mind towards achieving goals, we would really be unleashing something very powerful. Mm-hmm. So upon retirement, I signed up for a course in hypnotism. And got qualified, hung up my shingle, mm-hmm. and had a pretty steady stream, just sort of enough right. People coming to me for various things. It started out with things like stress, right. Weight reduction, smoking cessation, mm-hmm. changing habits and behaviors, and that sort of thing. But it took a turn towards spiritual things, which was, as I said earlier, very consistent with an interest that I've always had. Mm-hmm. But people wanted to know about past lives and connections with spirit guides and departed relatives and right. things like that. And hypnotism is often a vehicle for exploring those things. Sure. The channeling came about July of 2018, where one of my clients was in hypnosis. We were exploring a past life, and she reported she was in a spaceship. And I said, "What are you doing there?" She says, "Well, I'm monitoring Earth." Well, why would you do that? And she said, well, humans have a range of emotionality, probably greater than any species in the universe, and we're here to observe it. Huh. I said, fine, and kept asking questions. And the nature of the responses changed. She started talking more to me and referring to you humans and things like this. And suddenly,
you humans.
And suddenly the lights went on, and I said, we're channeling, aren't we? And she said, yes. I said, well, who are you? I said, we're the Palladians. Now, that's a civilization that purports to come from the star system Pleiades. It's part of the constellation of Taurus. Wow. And they've had a history of being on Earth many times over millennia, I guess. If you go on YouTube, you'll find all kinds of stuff about them.
Right.
They purport to walk among us somewhat these days even. But anyway, that led to a number of questions that said they're really here for a mission to help humans. That we're going through a period of transition where things are accelerating. The good stuff's getting better, the bad stuff's getting badder. But we're going through an evolution in consciousness. And the Mayan calendar identified 2012 as kind of the ending of an age of consciousness. Mm-hmm. And this new one is supposed to be starting at, actually, I believe started back maybe 30 years ago or so. But things are going to be a little bumpy, and they're going to be here to help us with some messages of healing, empowerment, hope, things related to this transition, raising consciousness. Anyway, since then, I've had 13 other women in hypnosis who began to channel. Wow. Now, some of these women are putting on public presentations. Right. I did one 2 weeks ago with a woman where I did a little talk, she did a little talk, and then she went into an altered state of awareness, and a being came through and took questions from the audience, and and you can ask these people anything, theories of the universe, space travel, what's going on with your shoulder. I've had over 100 conversations with what appears to be extraterrestrials.
Are these people in any way connected to your knowledge?
We're all connected.
Okay. Would one of them know another one, or
yes.
Okay.
Some do, some don't. Some are physical, and some have evolved to a point where they're no longer physical. They're totally spiritual. Some of them are a collective. The most recent one, a local woman, is channeling a collective, and this collective have come together to support her in her healing practice. Wow. And they were reporting that they're not quite sure how they're going to do this. There's people from the Pleiades, there's people from the Andromedan galaxy and others, and they're sort of putting their heads together to support her.
You mentioned, Peter, that these all of these clients are women.
Yes.
Why is that? Why aren't there some men who are channeling?
There are men who are channeling, and you can go on YouTube and you'll find them.
Yeah. But in your experience,
in my experience, the majority of my clients as a hypnotist have been women.
I see.
Mostly, it started out anyway that in looking at the numbers, about 80% of my clients were women, and probably fair to say about 80% of them took care of everybody except themselves, and they were distressed or whatever. Right. But women, in my experience, are more open to these things. Right. And in order to channel, you have to open yourself in some sense. Mm-hmm. I'm not a channeler. I've been told I'm going to be a facilitator of channelers. Mm-hmm. I find them. I practice with them. Right. With one woman, I've had 27 practice sessions. My goal is to get them to be independent of me, such that they will practice with me so that the connection between the extraterrestrial and themselves becomes very aligned. Initially, it isn't. The ETs are vibrating at a much higher level than we are, so the channeler has to raise her vibration. They have to lower theirs, and a connection has to be made. They sometimes take maybe a half dozen sessions before that alignment is really strong. And so with some hypnosis techniques, I can help them make the connection, but it's usually from the other side that the connection is strengthened.
I see.
Along with practice where the poor woman who's channeling, initially is a little taken aback, as you might imagine.
Yes, I can imagine.
And they're very concerned about what are people going to think? Am I being taken over? What's going on here?
Right.
And after a few sessions, they kind of get comfortable and settle into it and realize that these are friendly characters and they're here to help.
So you were saying that some of the clients that you work with then are quite open to sharing this publicly. You mentioned a public forum. Mm-hmm. Others are much more closed about it. They just don't want it to become public. Is that correct?
That is correct. They may change their minds, and that door is always available to them. Sure. But some have made it clear to me that right now they have no intention of going public.
Yes.
There's 2 or 3 that, you show them a stage and they'll jump.
They're there. Yeah. Peter, I guess I didn't maybe express myself properly when I asked the question a little bit earlier. But you've got 13 women, I think it is now, that you're working with who are channeling. 14. So were they in any way connected to your knowledge before they came to you? They were not. They didn't know each other previously, or were they friends previously? I'm just kind of wondering what the sequence was of how this group of people might have come to you.
Well, the first 3 were former clients. And
hypnosis clients.
Right. And there's a little backstory to this.
Sure.
Over time, if you go back about 6 years ago, I had a client who we were doing a past life regression, and she reported she didn't have a body. She said she was a light being. And I didn't know what that meant, and fine. Her job was to bring light to children. And again, I didn't really understand that. But anyway, I filed it away, and a couple of years later, another client reported during a past life regression that she was on another planet. The atmosphere was red. She had a 10-foot scaly body, and she was some kind of a warrior.
Wow.
So I made note of that one, and then I had a third that was somewhat the same way. So the lights went on a little bit, and I went to my files, and I pulled out 13 files that satisfied some criteria. These clients went quickly and deeply into hypnosis.
Right.
They had all done past life regressions with me, and they were quite interested in the metaphysical. So I sent an invitation to the 13, and 6 responded to this little study. Well, of the 6, 5 of them reported lifetimes on other planets.
Gosh.
But 3 of them started the channel. And then in talking with the beings, it became rather clear that we have a little mission here to kind of spread the word. And they told me there's going to be lots more. There's thousands of beings out there that want to channel through humans. And so they're looking for humans, and I'm somewhat a facilitator for that. So, they gave me some clues about the 4th, and I found her online. The 5th attended one of the public sessions that the first one had.
I see.
The 6th was a friend of mine who I knew was quite psychic and open, and I contacted her. But now it seems that people are hearing about this, and they're contacting me and saying, listen, I've been psychic all my life. I think I'm open to this kind of thing. I write books, and I don't know where the thoughts come from. And, so we put it to the test, and so they're coming in various ways.
Right. At first glance, it seems like your current involvement is really different from what you did in human resources. Is that just my perception? Is that correct, or is there a connection that I'm not seeing?
Well, I think early in my HR career, I realized that the human resource was probably the most fascinating, and it probably produced the highest return on investment of anything that business has. So I was always interested in humans, you might say, and human development.
Right.
This is human development on steroids.
Sure it is. Yeah, yeah. So it's not all that different. It's really, as you say, it's on steroids.
Yeah, it's a little different ballpark, but many of the same objectives. Really.
Yeah. Peter, I'm interested in how this activity is meaningful to you. What do you get out of it?
Well, imagine, Riley, that you have the opportunity to sit down for an hour at a time with an extraterrestrial who has a perspective that is beyond yours.
Yes.
You know, we have, for example, the light spectrum. We see a certain amount of light, but outside that range, we know there's a lot more. The sound spectrum, dogs can hear beyond us.
Sure.
Well, in so many spectrums, these characters can perceive beyond us. It's like they live on the 10th story and we're living on the first story. They just see further and wider and everything else. They're no better than we are. They just have a different perspective.
Yeah.
So if you get to sit down for an hour with some characters like that and you can ask them anything you want and get their take on it,
Yeah.
you know, you don't have to believe who they are, and they don't push it.
Right.
You know, they say, look, we're offering our insights. If it works for you, run with it. If it doesn't, find something else.
Right.
So I always examine the content.
Right.
And so what I get out of it is a ton of fascinating content about any subject that I have a curiosity about.
Sure. Which has led to some of your books.
Yes.
And podcasts and other involvements.
Yeah, the latest book,
Terrific.
I did the first draft in 8 days, and somebody asked me, was that channeled? And, you know, there are famous books that have been channeled, perhaps the Bible, but Donald Neil Walsh did the Conversations with God. There's 4 rather pricey books that were channeled. Jane Roberts channeled Seth, did the Seth books. So I said, I don't think it was. I thought those were all my ideas.
Right.
But I asked the Palladians, and they said, oh, yeah, there's 4 beings up there who kind of like writers, and they help out a little here and there. I say, well, it makes sense. 8 days is a bit of an anomaly.
Yeah. Wow. Peter, when one of the themes that we're working on in this podcast series is the idea of squeezing all the juice out of retirement. When you hear that phrase, what does that mean to you? How does that resonate with you?
Well, I suppose some people try to do that. I don't find it any effort at all. I wake up every morning with an agenda, and it's largely things I didn't get done the previous day or new things I'm looking forward to. And I don't find that a challenge as I can see some people might.
Right.
With these 14 women all going in different directions working with them, my plate's pretty full. And then I get clients coming in for stress or athletes for tension between tennis shots or whatever.
Right.
You know, getting as much out of life is, I guess, the meaning of it. And I just find I'm going with the flow, and the flow is really flowing very well.
So you consider that you're squeezing all the juice out of retirement. I can tell by the look in your eyes that you do.
Well, the juice is just showing up. You know, I'm not squeezing very hard at all.
No, it's
it's effortless.
Better still. So if someone were to ask you for your advice as to how you are squeezing all the juice out of retirement, or how they could, what kind of advice would you give them that would allow their time to be as exciting and as fulfilling as yours seems to be?
You know, somebody gave me advice prior to my retirement. They said in the first year, just say no to everything. Well, I think what they meant was that you're going to get a lot of opportunities come your way that you didn't expect. And don't sign up for them right away, because there may be a lot of better ones coming soon too.
Sure.
The advice I would have is prepare for it. We all know people. I can think of workers at Stelco. My first job was in Hamilton, and retirees from Stelco and Dofasco would go home and for 2 or 3 years drive their wives crazy and then die.
Yeah.
They didn't have any other interests.
Exactly.
So get a game plan, prepare a little bit, but be very flexible and very open, because it's going to take some twists and turns you didn't anticipate, and that's the fun.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one of the other themes that we're working on here is the idea of that says don't retire, but rewire. So how have you rewired yourself, your skills, your abilities in application in your new interest?
Well, rewiring has maybe a couple of potential ideas associated with it. One is maybe new energy. And I guess if you're excited about the things you're doing, the energy just flows. So find the things that resonate in your heart, your gut, or yourself.
Right.
And if you're having fun and enjoying what you're doing, the energy will come, and you are rewired.
Right.
The rewiring is maybe a byproduct of finding the right things to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's that aspect of energy, and then there's the implication or the idea of perhaps finding new directions, going in new ways. Well, I guess I did, but I followed the things that excited me each step of the way, and you take that step, and then you say, oh, go right, go left, It wasn't very much by design.
Right. But you were open to it?
Being open is very key, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, don't, I guess I said say no to everything. I contradict that, I guess, by saying be open to everything, too. Just don't sign up for too many things right away.
And so being selective as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So when it comes then to looking further down the road, what plans do you have for going forward? What kind of future plans do you have to push what you're doing further?
Well, I know I'm going to have more people come to me for channeling. There's going to be more channelers, I'm pretty convinced.
Yeah.
Some of the present ones are going to get onto bigger stages. I will be there with them, perhaps as the MC or the referee of questions. And I believe that I have prospects of channeling myself. And if that's the case, I want to take it public. I know some of my more conservative business associates will raise an eyebrow or maybe drift out of my orbit.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's okay. Peter, I want to thank you very much for joining me today. And you can connect with Peter if you're interested, and you can learn more about hypnosis, and you can learn more about his podcasts and his books by visiting his website, peterhdennis.com. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Riley. This has been fun.
Good. I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and that you'll join us again next time as we help you squeeze all the juice out of retirement. I'm Riley Moynes. Bye for now.